Maybe you saw me the other day. I was standing right here when I captured these moments. The light was magical. I took the photo you're looking at now, and you know what? In that moment, it happened again. The city began to whisper. There's a story about a woman named Anna, and she was right here. And the story begins. Chapter 1, with her back to the city. The year was 1886. Anna stood at the railing watching the part of Hamburg dissolve into a pale memory of mist. Her luggage was sparse, but tucked away was a single object that would eventually command her fate. It was a book. To this day, we don't know what kind of book it was. Perhaps she had snatched it from her bedside table in the blur of departure. A frantic reaching for something, anything that felt like home before she stepped into a world she didn't yet know. Out on the open sea, as the Atlantic swells thrashed against the hull, she sought solace in its pages. But as she opened it wasn't a printed story that fell into her lap. No, it was a postcard. A card from the old street she once lived. Alter Wandraum. Her neighborhood. The ink looked fresh, kinder, the handwriting hurried. It was Jay's hand. We only know him as Jay from the letters. Later in the family stories, Jay became Jacob. Whether that was truly his name, we can't be sure now, nearly 150 years later. But he was the man simply her love. And in those lines, he wrote to her of the first wrecking balls, of the red dust settling on the windowsill, and of a love that was stronger than any brick. Anna read those first few lines in her heart, though full of love, tightened with a sudden chill. The fear of what lay ahead was louder than the ache of a past that was supposed to be a future. She felt the tears coming. And she did what one does when the truth is here to break the heart. She simply turned the page. She pushed the book deep into her trunk. New York demanded a strong woman, not a weeping girl. She arrived at Ellis Island, made her way through, mastered the language until it was flawless, and eventually became a journalist. She became successful, very cool, like a New York girl. But that card had stayed in the book. A sleeping witness waiting years for Anna to finally be ready to hear the rest of the message. Jacob's voice remained silent until one evening, when the past caught up with her with the force of a tidal wave. Chapter 2. The Decision. New York, 1890. A city that never stands still, a city with no time for sentimentality. Anna had found her place, writing reviews for the great German language papers over the Lower East Side. Her home was nothing more than a distant echo, a city made of fog. The book with the card, it sat at the very back of her shelf, buried under stacks of manuscripts and stuff. It wasn't that she didn't think of it, quite the opposite. But as a woman, she was a master of forgetting. I don't know if that is the right word, but I don't know how to say that. If you read the letter, you can feel her broken heart. Everything, always on her mind. But I don't know, kinda far away, until it came to that one night. A theater review, a drama about two lovers separated by the ocean. It was pure fiction. But when the lead actor spoke the words, "the home that sinks into the dust," something happened. It was as if a cold hand had been laid upon her heart. She stopped hearing the actors. She heard Jacob. The stage sets vanished, replaced by the old street where she lived, Alter Wandraum. She saw the water of the canals and the red brick dust he had written about. The words she had left unread over 2 years ago on the ship began to burn in her mind. Anna left before the final curtain. She nearly ran home, her heels clicking against the wet pavement of Manhattan. She tore the books from her shelves until she found what she was looking for. There, by the light of a gas lamp, she finally turned the page she had abandoned on the Atlantic. The ink was faded now, like a whisper from another world. And she read the lines to the end. Jacob hadn't just written that he loved her. He had written, "When you return, my house will be gone, but I will wait for you at the second pillar of St. Catherine's every evening when the vesper bell tolls, until the last stone falls." Anna felt she was the girl from the old street in Hamburg, Alter Wandraum. She booked her passage on the next ship, no matter the cost. Chapter 3: 2 weeks of silence. The voyage took 2 weeks, the longest of her life. She felt a strange hum of joy laced with a jagged edge of fear. Would he still love her? Could her heart stay still with the world moved on? It felt as if her heart had become a compass needle, and Hamburg was the North Pole, kinda like that. When the ship finally steamed up the Elbe River and the city appeared in the distance, she began to cry. She was home. Stepping onto the floating piers, she did something she had never allowed herself to do in New York. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. And her heart finally began to beat in the right rhythm again. She whispered to the city, "Hello, beautiful. I'm back." She wandered the streets, needing to taste the atmosphere again. She found a bakery and bought a Franzbrötchen. The pastry of cinnamon, sugar, and butter. It was the aroma of her childhood. Yes, same here. I love it. Let me know when you come to this place. Then I will show you the best ones in the city. Sorry. Okay, back to the story. And then there was the coffee. And Hamburg coffee and tea were the scent of adventure and home all at once. For a moment, watching the water carriers navigate the narrow strait, the world felt perfect. And she thought, nothing can part us here. Chapter 4: A New Place. She got closer to the old part of town, but as she neared the street, Alter Wandraum, the atmosphere curdled. The sound of carriages was replaced by the whir of hammers. The air grew dry. gritty. The sweetness of cinnamon turned to the taste of lime and rubble. When she turned to the corner toward the canals, the smile froze on her lips. Where her home should have been, there were only craters and the towering red walls of a future she didn't recognize. Anna stood at the edge of a massive construction site. The dust settled on her coat like a fine red veil. She asked the people there about the houses from yesterday. They didn't even look up. Excuse me? That was the day before yesterday, my dear. Progress is growing here now. She didn't give up. She went to St. Catherine's Church. Inside, it smelled of old stone and candle wax. She waited at the second pillar as the vesper bell rang. 1, 2, 3. But when the final toll faded, she was still alone. Of course. The reality was harsher than the postcard. Sure. Almost 4 years is a long time to wait. She knew that. She found someone there. He remembered the families of the old place around the streets. The young man you described? Yeah, I remember him. He waited a long time. But eventually a man must move on when his home is washed away, you know. They say he went to the north, to the new tenements. I'm Spitter. Think of beautiful facades, decorative balconies, and the smell of fresh mortar. It was becoming a stronghold for the middle class, civil servants, and skilled artisans. Chapter 5. A different kind of walk. Anna decided to walk. She needed to feel the city under her feet. She had long known that the entire district was destined for the wrecking ball. It had been common knowledge for over 10 years. She knew that more than 20,000 people would be forced to abandon their homes to make way for the new area. Yet somehow, she had pushed that reality aside to a flickering spark of hope. Even before she had left Hamburg, the progress had begun, though it started over at Kehrwieder, the other side, far from her own corner of the neighborhood. But what she returned to find now was beyond anything she could have imagined. The people who remained seemed to have grown used to the devastation. Or they simply had no other choice. Overwhelmed, Anna realized she needed fresh air. She passed the famous streets and the city hall, which was then just a skeletal construction site. Everything was in flux. At the Alster lake, the world seemed fine. Ladies with parasols strolled by the water. But she couldn't stay. She headed northwest, and the city changed its face again. It smelled of coal smoke and hard labor. In the heart of I'm Spitter, she found a small coffee filled with music. The owner smiled when she asked for Jacob. Oh, the one who brings the coffee. Yeah, he writes for the local paper now. Stories about the people who lost their homes, you know. He's known for the beans he brings, fresh from the docks. He says he finds his peace on long walks toward the beach. Chapter 6. To the Elbe River. Anna knew where to go. This shore, where the harbor slowly surrenders to the sand. In 1890 it was where the city went to breathe. In those days, narrow wooden piers stretched from the sand into the tide. One would scurry into the cabin at the far end to change unseen before plunging into the water. It was a novelty in these parts, and many had yet to grow accustomed to them. But one thing remained constant: the amazing view of the river. And at that time, the beach was significantly narrower than it is today. Anna could easily reach the shoreline. The sun was dipping low as she reached that place. And then she saw him. He was sitting on a wooden bench in front of a small coffee, looking out at the river. A cup of coffee in front of him, the steam dancing in the cool evening air. He didn't look like the man from the old street. He was a man now marked by the loss of his home. But when Anna whispered his name, the clocks of the world seemed to stop. He turned, and in his eyes there was no surprise or shock, only a deep, exhausted relief, as if he had always known she would come, just not when. They shared a coffee. The years of separation fell away like the dust of the construction sites. Jacob pushed a cup of that dark, strong brew toward her and said simply, "I knew the coffee would lead you home." Chapter 7: A Journey Through Life. They didn't stay there for long. Their journey took them first to Altona. In those days, Altona was a world of its own, Prussian territory, separated from Hamburg by an invisible border of laws and pride. For Anna and Jacob, it was a sanctuary. Those foreign streets gave them the distance they needed to heal from the ghost of the old street. Years later, when the city of warehouses, today it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, by the way, they returned, near to their old place, new street, same soul. They lived there for the rest of their lives, watching the city hall open its doors and the pub become a gateway to the world. But for them, the most important places remain the small ones. The second pillar of St. Catherine's Church, the beach at the river, and the scent of freshly roasted coffee on a rainy morning in Hamburg. So, the next time you walk through this place, listen closely. Between the passing ships and the hum of the tourists, there's an echo. It is the voice of the many people who once lived their lives right where you stand. A story that proves houses can fall, borders can divide cities, but our true home is something we carry within ourselves. And when I stand here on this bridge, catching the scent of coffee and tea, I know one thing for certain. Buildings can be torn down, neighborhoods can vanish, but love is like the Elbow River. It always finds its way back home. Have a good night, or have a good day, wherever you are. And thank you for being here. See you next time.